The word astrology. Astro comes from the Greek word astron, which means star, and logos means like language. So astrology is the language of the cosmos, the language of the stars.
Okay, dude, you ready?
I know words, I have the best words.
I want to share a realization about astrology that I had with you guys, because I'm such a skeptical bastard. Like, you can't really talk to me about anything that's kind of new age or gives spirituality a kind of mystical sort of perspective. Like corner store psychics and people that say they can talk to the dead, or tarot cards on like crystal healing, like that dowsing stuff, or ESP, all this kind of stuff. I've always just kind of clumped it together, including astrology. I always kind of just clumped this together into like a new age category that I just am not really into. Like, it's cool to think about, but I feel like it's just not where my spiritual path has me focused on. I had this realization. I was in the shower. I usually get really stoned before I take a shower, and I just go in there and I think of video ideas and just think about thoughts and whatever, you know? And I had this thought about astrology. Well, it wasn't even about astrology, actually. What I was actually thinking about was free will. Does free will exist? And my realization was that if you could look at the universe objectively, then you could be able to predict what is going to happen in the future. Think of the universe like this book, and theoretically this book is a timeline in which we can fast forward or rewind and really just objectively look at the universe. This is all of creation right here in this book. So from start to finish, or infinity, or whatever. Technically it could go on forever and it doesn't even need a start. All we would need to do is be able to look at the patterns long enough to be able to determine what this thing is doing, what this universe is doing. Because physics has shown that there are measurable laws in the universe, in this creation. And if you look out into nature, you can see that there are patterns and shapes. There are geometry, math. There is math scattered throughout reality. This is what sacred geometry is noticing these sacred patterns in nature, noticing that this universe is doing something. And it's doing something in rhythm and harmony. So if we could look at the universe, this is all theoretical, of course. So if you were like the most insane genius that is just has infinite capacities to understand math, you would be able to see these patterns in which the universe is creating, and through that be able to predict what is going to happen next. So my conclusion is that free will doesn't exist, because there are patterns that are happening that exist because of a previous condition. What's happening now happened because of the domino that fell before. Does that make sense? So you can extend this logic out into astrology, I think. Astrology is the study of these patterns. And when I had that realization, I was like, because astrology comes from the Vedas, and the Vedas are, pretty much where I get my spiritual authority from. I feel like these guys, not that they were just a group of guys, but this branch of philosophy is the most in tune, poetic reflection of divinity that I've ever come across. So because they took it serious, I feel like I should loosen my ego a little bit and maybe look at it kind of objectively, and not lump everything into one category just because I don't understand it. And maybe that's what I'm doing with all those things. But specifically, astrology is starting to make more sense to me. And also, just to elaborate a little bit more on what I was saying, that the conditions of right now are because of the previous condition, or the previous domino that knocked itself into us, which is the current domino that's falling or doing whatever it's doing. You exist because of these laws. We may go through life with our judgments, and this is bad, this is this, we like what we like, we dislike what we dislike, but objectively, these things aren't actually real. They're not the truth of what's happening, our desires or not desires. These are all things that were given to us from maybe you could say your parents, your conditioning. You may feel like you dislike something because you just naturally dislike it, but a lot of the time these things were given to you, whether it be through your ancestors passing down this genetic instinctual code that makes you afraid of the dark or whatever, or if it was because of your cultural conditioning, your conditioning of your home life, your parents. And furthermore, you can keep on extending that logic out, and you see that it's all dictated by the conditions of the universe. The conditions of the universe make it possible for all of this to happen. Alan Watts once said something like, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies. In the same way that Earth and the solar system are all working like gears together, this galaxy is doing that with the entire universe. This entire universe is a gear mechanical system. We're just lost into ourselves. We aren't aware enough to be able to understand our place in the universe. So I think astrology, which a lot of the time I do believe it's BS, but I think there is a legitimate aspect to astrology. My friend Clara is like well into this stuff, and she got all my information the time I was born and all that kind of stuff, and she put it into her favorite website. She sent me my natal chart. I haven't went over it yet, but I want to go over it and see if it's accurate, or if I think it's BS, or if or whatever, because it's through the lens of Vedic astrology, which is, again, what I resonate with. And Vedic astrology, as far as I can work out, seems to be what people gravitate towards when they get into this kind of thing on a deeper depth. I always thought I was a Gemini, but apparently in Vedic astrology I'm a Leo. And it says that, let's see what it says. A typical Leo is ambitious, courageous, strong-willed, positive, independent, and self-confident. They are straightforward and uncomplicated individuals who know very well what they want to pursue, and they pursue it with complete enthusiasm and with a creative spirit. They're too sensitive to personal criticism, and when governance is threatened, they can go into a sudden anger. They are stubborn and will hold on to a belief or stick to it and stick to a course of action through thick and thin. It says basically Leos are outgoing, happy, and kind of generous. Kind and generous, not kind of generous. But I am kind of generous. I'm not too generous. I could definitely do a lot more. Self-expressive, intelligent, and broad-minded. They have a fixed determination. Physical appearances. Let's see if they describe what I look like. Leo ascendants are the owner of a charismatic personality. They often cast majestic and magnetic impression on people. But in terms of structure, they are not as blessed as their persona they usually have. Average height with perfect carved upper body. Ooh, I am pretty buff on the upper bits. Leos possess large oval-shaped faces with yellowish tinge eyes. Oh shit, my eyes are kind of yellow sometimes. With a prominent chin. Oh god. And my crimson chins in it. It says education and income. You will start making money at a very young age, like 17 or 18. I did start making money at a pretty young age, but I feel like everyone kind of starts making money at about 16, 17. That's when you start really getting a job, or at least my parents were like, get the fuck out of here. This one is weird and pretty specific. I don't know if anyone else could really fit into this, but it says that my favorable field for as far as a career goes is hypnotist. Growing up and still to this day, I have the most abstract inspirations. Like, I can look over here right now and I can see one of these books I grew up on was a Darren Brown book. I have his autograph on this side of my room. Like, I was a big fan of Darren Brown, who was a showman and kind of a hypnotist type of guy. This was what I wanted to do as my career. And what he does is kind of talk to people using embedded commands through conversation and sort of suggestion in order to manipulate conversations. And this is something that I've been super into since I was a kid. You might even heard me talk about it in previous videos. So that's a really specific, weird one for a career. Do any of you guys want to be a hypnotist? It gives a couple other answers. It says photography, work related to cinema, music and art, business, psychology. These are all kind of things that I do for my work. Business, I own a clothing company. Psychology is, I'm really into psychology as far as psychedelic work and stuff like that. That could all be categorized as being into psychology. Family life, you will get less support from your supporters in your personal life. Also, there's a chance of tiffs with your father. Yeah, I don't really talk to my dad at all, actually. And the skeptic in me is like, most people have issues with their father. Most people start working at a young age. Most people want to say that they are into business. Most people want to believe that they are charismatic and outgoing and likable. Expecting too much soon, you are under tremendous inner tension and are too stubborn to compromise. Extremely nervous, you scatter your energies by doing too many things at once and rarely complete anything. That's so true. That's probably the most accurate description of my life, is that I get so overwhelmed. I have to have a million things going on at once for me to keep up with myself. I can't sit down and focus on one thing unless it's like a complete meditation to where like I'm writing poetry or making a video, something I can get lost in the moment into. But if I'm not lost in the moment and I'm just caught up in the loop of this conveyor belt, just walking on, what are those things called, where those machines that people run on and it doesn't go anywhere. If I'm just on one of those, then I have to be doing so many things just to stay with my brain. Let's see what it says about my health. You are liable to attacks of sciatica or rheumatism. Sciatica or rheumatism? The fuck? It may be difficult to assign a reason for these attacks, but manifestly they are due to exposing yourself too frequently to night air. What? But overall, I just wanted to share my stoned realization in the shower about how astrology is theoretically possible. I hope you liked it. Make sure to click subscribe down there and give this video a thumbs up. Check out my friend Clara's video. She just made a video about astrology, and it's you probably get more information